Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Easter, Pesach, and whatever else we can celebrate. Thank you so much for coming, making your way here, filling the house precisely with 2 seats to spare. We're very happy to have you here for this presentation, the premiere performance of Feral, composed by our own Mark Brody. And I'm not going to say much because we have other people to say much more interesting things than I do. So I will just say there are 2 exits. And this is the penultimate concert of the concert series, the professional concert series. The last one is Wednesday, and it's Rebecca Thornblade with an afternoon of romantic string trios on Wednesday at 1 o'clock in Jewett. And then we have a whole slew of student ensembles and student recitals. So there's not probably a day that doesn't have something going on. So if you want music, this is the place to be. And if you're on my list, my email list, you will know all about it. And if you're not and you want to be, just let us know. And now I would like to welcome John Aylward, the artistic director of Etche Ensemble, who has put this together with collaborators Mark Brody, he and others. So
thank you. Thank you all very much for coming. It's a very special day for us. We've been working a long time, and Marty Brody's been working a very long time on this piece. We've been talking about it for, I suppose, even over a year, and we began developing it in conjunction with Colin Yee, our movement artist, who's a part of our ensemble, and Nina Guo, our soprano, another member of our ensemble, and two truly special artists, part of our group, and great collaborators. Started working with Marty on the work even months before the piece was finished, in conjunction with the actual composition. So there's a lot of collaborative energy here, and I hope that comes across. I'm truly inspired by all of the musicians that you'll hear this evening, and it's really an honor to put on the premiere of this work. And I'm thrilled that we've had the opportunity to work with a stellar scholar, composer, and a truly wonderful human being in Marty Brody. So thank you, Marty. I also just want to thank the supporters who make Etche's season possible. Etche has a regular concert season. We produce a festival in France every summer where our conductor Jean-Philippe works, mentors young composers. Paul and Catherine Butenweiser, Cynthia and John Reed, Eunice and Jay Panetta, Arthur Clark and Susan Sloan. I wonder if I'm forgetting anybody. We have a truly wonderful family of supporters, and we couldn't do our work without them and without all of your support. So if you'd like to get involved in supporting the work we do, in helping us commission composers, and in helping us support these performers, please be in touch and let us know. It's a great family of supporters of new classical music. We're very excited by all the developments, including the ones that we move forward on, but all of these great classical music ensembles that are part of the bigger picture. We're really happy for your support to the entire world of new music, new classical music. I want to let you know that there are going to be some intense silences in tonight's performance, so we wouldn't want anything to go off during those silences. So cell phones, pagers, beepers, anything that even buzzes, people are probably going to hear. No flash photography, please. Anything that might disturb the performers while they're up here. Turn your flashes off. And I think that's it. And I really want to thank Wellesley.
I just wanted to say we are having a Q&A afterwards. I wanted to say that before. So we'll have a little, you can grab a cookie and come back in
And grill us.
yeah.
And Isabel, I really want to thank Wellesley. We've been here all week preparing this piece. This is an amazing place. Thank you for having us and allowing us to do our best work here with you. The music department, Jenny Johnson, everybody involved in hosting us here. Thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoyed the event tonight.
When God has given you the way. If Hurry, let's get out of here. Over this beast I extend my grace. Let's go. I'll hunt no more today. to lay their hands. Lady of the walls betrayed, with this and at herself arrayed in clothes of gold and with a gift, goes to the king to offer it. Listen to his revenge on her. On all sides they surrounded him. They would have torn the life from nor done
God gives you the gift of eloquence, it isn't right to silence it or hide the consequence.
This adventure you have heard is true. This adventure you have heard is true in every note and word. Of the wolf I made a song, so none forgets this tale so long. As long as men and women share this world.
Ago, and we had a conversation. It happened to be in Rome, and we were sitting around, and it was started out kind of midday, and I noticed at a certain point that it was dark out, and it was a really quite extended conversation, and in a certain sense we've had collaboration since then. And in that conversation, we were talking about the training for the sort of, for want of a better term, semiotics of this physical world that he was working in. And I don't know if you remember this, but at one point he kind of started from here and then went in layers that were about this much and went completely all the way down his body and said, well, here, and this also, by the way, had to do with working as a clown, which Colin has done in the Cirque du Soleil. And when he got to the eyes, there were like, I don't know how many different positions that were actually formal positions. You could have one this way and the other that way, and I can't do it, but or you could have be looking this way, and then your forehead could be like this, and if you did that, your nose could be in these 5 positions. And it was then cumulative. It was a kind of combinatorial matrix that involved the different planes of your body. And I thought to myself, this is in a physical form very much like what happens when you have a lot of notes in a piece of music and they're all interacting in these very kind of complex ways. And so this is just a kind of shout out to the amount of detail that is involved in conscious detail, involved in thinking about how to express these things.
Marty, one of the remarkable features of this astounding composition, the variety of timbres that you drew from that ensemble, and you seemed not to repeat yourself. It really, utterly remarkable, and you've announced yourself as the master colorist of the early 21st century. Could you kindly just say a quick word about how you decided to compose this particular ensemble, the choices of instruments?
Well, I'm going to tell you the truth. The choice was that this is what the Etche ensemble was. And I actually was going to make it a slightly smaller group because I thought it should be very compact. And then I think John said to me, you better put an oboe part in because, Hassan, we want Hassan. I said, yeah, of course we want Hassan. And then Roberta really plays beautiful bass flute and plays bass flute a lot. And the contrabass clarinet was, something that's a very characteristic instrument for this ensemble. And so it really was there. It was. That's what they were in the kind of happiest configuration. Except for the bass, I really wanted a bass. I wanted the contrabass clarinet and the string bass. Because it's not there's not a bass usually as much of the time, really, with Etche. That was that. And then this business about changing the colors. Another thing I really wanted in this piece was not to have a piano in it. And there were two reasons. One of them is it can be more of a pop-up piece this way. It's still, 10 people, but you don't need, there's no percussion. I was honestly thinking about cartage fees. And thinking, let's just do this so that we don't have to, we can take it someplace else, we can take it without any of that. But the other thing that happened when the piece started, and I think this is more what I think you're thinking about, is that all of these instruments, not all, they tune rather differently. And so when you recombine them, you get slightly different ways that the overtones are going to work, and you try to imagine that, in part because the scariest thing about this piece is that Nina has to carry everything, right?
Sure did.
Whatever it is, roughly 440 lines of iambic tetrameter in rhyme couplets with an occasional line that is a fifth line that actually rhymes with the first and third of that group instead of, it's formally just really strict. And then you have to give this to you can't spread it out between other singers. There's just not enough dialogue for the other characters. So I wanted to surround her with all sorts of things that would color her voice in different ways, so that we would really still want to hear that voice, which we're hearing constantly. I've written shorter pieces before, like 20-minute pieces where there's too many words, as opposed to 70-minute pieces where there's too many words, like this one. And in the shorter ones, I have found in the past you can easily get tired of that rich, intense sound that you're hearing all the time. So you want to give it a halo that's going to change things. And then, of course, there are character things. Every time there's something about the wolf, you hear it's like you hear the wolf, you hear the contrabass clarinet. Every time there's something about the wife, there's the bass flute for a while. When her nose gets torn off, it's the regular flute with all the breathy stuff. So there's kind of that stuff too. But a lot of it was about the characterization that's coming from Nina. And it also relates to something that Colin said. All those colors are, what the narrator is going through, in a way. So it wasn't formalized beyond that, but thank you for that. Yes.
This is maybe a little bit of a follow-on. There are some extraordinary moments of consonances between Nina and the ensemble, or as members of the ensemble, and I was just curious how those work for you, either as a singer or as a composer.
Thank God. I think I'll leave it at that.
Actually. Fair enough.
I have a question for Nina. Marty could not have said use this kind of growl or that kind of growl, right? So they must have been all yours. How did you practice them so that they're so seamlessly integrated to your voice and singing?
This is not a very great answer for any educator. I did not practice them. When I thought about, I like animals in general. I like to go to the park and listen to them and watch what they do and sometimes imitate them back at themselves because this is something that's really fun for me and the animal, not for the owner. The owners find it weird. And when Marty was like, yeah, you're gonna be barking and growling, like, go full critter. I was like, I can hear that if I tell this to my voice teacher, that her hair will stand straight up on end. And actually my approach to this is going to go full critter. I am just not going to think about it. When it comes time for the performance, I'm going to go as full critter as I possibly can. I'm not going to think about the duration of the piece. It'll just have to be fine. It will be fine. And so I just pictured different dogs that I had seen and different wolves that I had studied and looked up, and I just thought about them and what they do.
Oh, you're the one who spends time in the park.
Yes,
it says
yes,
here.
that's me.
That's right. I
Yes,
forgot that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You get a lot of yeah. You can listen a lot in parks. They tell you a lot, especially about dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I didn't think I didn't practice it because I think it needed to be I just had to think about dogs.
So we've been going for a while. Maybe one or two more questions?
This might be for Mary, I don't know. It's just about the story. I guess maybe it's a mysterious story, but he just is a werewolf. They don't explain how he became a werewolf, and then after the king gets him back to his normal self, he's still a werewolf, and he'll still go out in the
That's
woods.
my big question. I mean, there are a lot of mysterious features of this, which I thought that was one of the brilliant things about you being there, is that the mysteriousness of this piece in so many ways is maintained constantly by you, by that wordless, non-obvious motion. But I thought about it again at the end of this performance. I thought, it's not over till the fat lady sings. A werewolf is a werewolf. It's a terrible thing to be, but once you are one, there'd have to be a pretty special episode in the story to make you not be one somehow. So my view is, good luck to everybody. I don't know what Marty's view about that is.
Well,
Or your view as a
yeah.
singer.
What do you think? Still a werewolf?
I don't
Whatever.
know. I don't know.
Yeah, he's a werewolf. He's a werewolf. He was a werewolf before,
Yeah.
and he got lost from his clothes, so he's a werewolf permanently, and he got the clothes back, and now he's back to being a werewolf. No question.
His wife was never suspicious until...
So,
I think she's probably...
No, the important thing is he gets his land back and more.
Right, exactly.
And he will have everything that his heart desires as long as he and the king shall live. This is the moral. The queen, the wife gone from the country, betrayal was, revenged upon. That's it.
Right. The structure is back, and the land needed him, and he needed the land, and they needed the king, and he needed each other, and so on. And the wife is just like there to give you some really exciting bits of singing.
So the one thing I would add to that is that when you're composing, you feel like you need to have an answer to that question because, you're interpreting everything that's happening. And ultimately, I ended up feeling I didn't have an answer, and Marie doesn't say anything. And that part of her incredible sophistication of this poem, which I thought I loved more and more, I loved what Mary did with it more and more as I spent so much time with each line. But it's one of the reasons why it seemed right to give Colin a reference back to the beginning and to actually say something. That's a slight fudge factor to say we actually aren't going to... You get the two episodes. The king gives him his land back and more, and then the wife is banished with the nose off. And the next generations also don't have noses. And then there's nothing like it says, and that's how it ended. There's no There's nothing else there. It just says this is a true story.
Right.
Yeah.
And you
Do
repeat it twice.
do with it what you will. And so I actually felt that because of the silences that are opened up that Colin occupies, he occupies silence, he occupies the thing that we can't quite reach, that was our theme, that there's some mystery that's left here, and that we're not going to do what things often do, which is resolve that. So anyway, that's how I felt about it. I think we should
Thank
have
you
another
very
cookie
much,
or something
Marty.
like that.